This is Eat, Sleep, Invest, the marketing podcast for real estate investors to get more deals. And I'm here with Frank McKinney today. What's going on, Frank?
Hey, guys, listen, you never guess where I'm coming to you from. This is my office. I've been in for 20 years, wrote all 7 of my books from here and some of the beautiful oceanfront mansions that Bryan's going to talk about, or you can go see, up to a $50 million spec house. I designed this desk in my treehouse. So my commute to work in the morning is across a 40-foot suspension bridge, like kind of Swiss Family Robinson. For 20 years, that's been my commute. And if I could flip the camera around, you'd see right over my shoulder, right over the computer screen, is the beautiful Atlantic Ocean. 220 square feet. I got 12 windows in here. I got a king-size bed with a flat screen TV up there. And I've got a bathroom sink and a shower right here in case I stay late and want to be, I don't know if I'm working on writing one of my books. So this is where all the magic happens.
Man, that is awesome too. I know most people are in an office, can't see anything. You're in a tree house, like totally different atmosphere.
Oh, listen, everybody that works for me, Bryan, has not had an office to go to for 12 years. They all work at home. I closed my main office 12 years ago. I'm either in the field, going back and forth between our oceanfront projects, or if I'm writing a book. I mean, this is great. I mean, it draws out creativity and ingenuity, and we all need a place that does that because creativity and ingenuity is what is rewarded in business today.
Yeah, so that's awesome. That's so true. So, Frank, you have a ton of things going on. You're in real estate. Well, I'll let you even tell. So what all do you have going on over there, and what got you involved with the real estate?
Listen, when you say that, Bryan, I'm just a sinner saved by the grace of God. I'm the oldest of 6 kids from Indiana, corn-fed country boy that grew up on a farm. At 18, I had just left my 4th high school in 4 years, and they had just shut the door on me for the 7th time at juvenile detention, where I was locked up, 7 times before I was 18. So with $50 and a one-way plane ticket, I left Indiana, no hope of pursuing a formal education with a 1.8 GPA out of high school. And I landed in Florida with everything I owned in a duffel bag. Having $50 to your name at 18 years old is not, a lot of people can say, what's the big deal, Frank? That's how I started too. It's really what I did between then and now. So I might believe in the welfare system, the entitlement systems that are out there, but I don't believe in the welfare mentality. I was really proud to have a job digging sand traps on a golf course for $180 a week. And, listen, I was around affluence. I was around people who could play golf all day. Lifestyles are rich and famous for you, for you people that are my age. For you younger people, think MTV Cribs. A lifestyle, voyeuristic look inside of that rich and famous way of living that we all wanted. And I wanted it. I'm young. I'm impressionable. Excuse me. I'm 19, 20 years old. I want that. But how? How do I get it? I got no education. I got no friends, barely. I got no network. I've got no financing. I mean, I guess I'm going to be a maintenance worker. I became a tennis pro after being a maintenance worker. And I was making $100,000 a year teaching tennis. I was a really good tennis player as a youth in Indiana. Like I was ranked in the top 10 in the state of Indiana. Actually, the top 3 in the state of Indiana, top 10 in the Midwest. So I relied on that skill. That was my PhD, my way of earning a PhD in entrepreneurship and ultimately a master's in real estate. Because, Bryan, I taught people who were super rich how to hit a better forehand and a backhand. And in addition to $50 an hour that I was charging back then, all I wanted from you was to learn how you did it. So picture this. This is back in the late 80s, early 90s. Picture somebody driving up to a tennis lesson in a Ferrari. They have a multi-million-dollar home that they're living in. They have a yacht at the dock behind their house. They have a beautiful husband or a beautiful wife. They got kids. They have what I want. How'd you get it? And this is where the real estate came in. So I'm teaching Bryan Driscoll how to hit a better forehand and a backhand. He's all the way over on the other side of the net, 78 feet over on the other baseline. And I'm thinking, how can I get into his head? Like after Bryan's done with his lesson, then it's your turn to take your lesson. I'm going to tire Bryan out after 45 minutes of an hour-long lesson. I'm going to run him harder than his physical capability has. And I'm going to sit him down for those last 15 minutes and I'm going to pick his brain. Did that for 2 years, Bryan. I taught dozens of people in very, very affluent communities how to play tennis better. And in those 15 minutes at a time, at the end of each lesson that they were too tired to finish, by design, how'd you get here? And the answer I heard over and over again was real estate. Now, they were 9-to-5ers, just like everybody watching this podcast. You all are 9-to-5ers. Nobody's born a real estate investor, just like I wasn't. I was born a juvenile delinquent, troublemaker. But what I learned from them was, yes, they were doctors and lawyers and inventors, but they took their discretionary money left over after paying taxes and the mortgage and invested it in real estate. And I heard, if you hear a story like that once or twice, it's kind of fascinating and it's entertaining. But what if you heard it dozens and dozens of times when you're 19 and 20 and impressed? Doesn't matter when you hear it. But Bryan, after 2 years of hearing, I said, this is for me. Contrary to what you might be thinking as you look at me here with the hair and all that, I'm a lot less exciting than I look. I saved all my money teaching tennis in the hot sun. I swore off all unhealthy vices and temptations when I was 21 years old. So to live an extraordinary life, you must resist an ordinary approach. And ordinary for me was drinking and going to the beach all day and doing drugs and womanizing and doing the club scene. Not me. I quit it all to focus on this thing called real estate. And in my early 20s, I did my first flip. It was a crack house I bought for 36 grand, flipped it and made $7,000. Mind you, back then, flip was a word used only in gymnastics. It wasn't even a real estate term. And so I was bit by the bug. I loved it. I made it the nicest little crack house on the block. When I say it wasn't a crack house anymore, but I took it and I put 3 coats of paint on instead of 2. I put $20 yard carpet instead of 10. I put a new roof on it, so just patching the leaks, grass sod instead of grass seed. And that in that moment, that first house, that's when I became a real estate artist. And for 5 years, Bryan, I didn't do a house worth more than 100 grand. If you know of Malcolm Gladwell, he's a great author, and he wrote the book Blink. And in Blink, Gladwell says you need to be an expert at anything in life, you have to put in 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours is 5 years full time. I look back almost a post-mortem on those early days. I didn't do a house worth more than 100 grand for 5 years, but guess what? I got really good at the craft of real estate. And in 1992, 30 years ago, we moved to the oceanfront, not physically, but we started buying beat up houses on the ocean and either tearing them down and building new or renovating, just like a crack house, only it happened to be on the ocean. And since that time in 1992 to today, we've done 44 spec homes, all spec. I'm not a custom builder. I don't want to sell my soul to anybody, but the good Lord. And 44 houses averaging about $14.5 million on a sale price on spec. And that allows me to be a three-dimensional artist, man. I build this three-dimensional art on a canvas known as the Atlantic Ocean. And like Van Gogh, Renoir, Monet, you either love what I do and you can buy it for a lot of money or somebody else will.
Dude, that is hot. There's so many gems in what you were just saying there.
That was a long answer to your short question. And I'm sorry, I'll make them shorter so you can interrupt and jump in there.
Dude, no, that's awesome though. Like even starting out, like a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do this. Well, you did surround yourself with the people. Like you look what you know how to do. And then you surrounded yourself with really smart people. And then you used your brain. You're like, okay, let me tire these guys out. And let me see if they can give me some tips.
My jaw, when these people would drive up to these tennis lessons, I mean, I'm not materialistic and consumeristic now. I drive a 1988 Yugo. Those of you who don't know what that is, look it up. I've lived in the same house for 25 years. My lifestyle hasn't changed hardly at all since I've made, good living. But back then, when I'm 19, 20, 21, oh my God, I had a Ferrari at 21, not from real estate, from teaching freaking tennis. I bought a Ferrari. So I knew what it felt like to have these really nice things, but it was from the people that I watched drive up to these tennis lessons and had everything that I thought I wanted, success represented. And you're right, Bryan, I went to school on them. That was my classroom. I couldn't get into a community college, but you better believe that those 2 years spent picking the brains of the ultra wealthy yield me a PhD and a master's better than anything I could have ever gotten in any school.
Yeah. Now, so since you did that, so for people listening, because I know a lot of people are intimidated by people like uber wealthy, really successful. What have you found whenever you were 19 years old? Were a lot of them willing to share the secrets with you and share their past? Or were they like, Oh, I can't really. I just give you little teeny bits of it.
No, I will tell you exactly what I experienced then, because I am that person now. And so back then, when you have succeeded at a certain level, which I have, I am really eager to share my story of my success in the 7 books I've written. I love sharing the news of how I did it, how I was successful. So did they. There wasn't a person that when they saw me, okay, you got a flashback. I am 20 years old. I'm a younger version of what they once were. So they were like, you know what, Frank, you have all the energy and the drive and the passion. I may not have that anymore. I'm in my 50s. I'm set. But let me tell you, if I had your energy like you have now and your eagerness, and I was just like, it's probably a pain in their ass to do what you want to do, let me tell you how to do it quicker, better, and more efficient. And they were free with their stories.
Yeah. Anyone listening? Yeah. Pay attention to what he just said. That's so important.
And guess what, Bryan? If some of them said, hey, I don't got time, I got to go, or, that's my secret, I just move on to the next. Okay, great. You're not going to tell me. The worst thing they could say is, no, shut up, teach me how to hit a better forehand. So what? I got plenty of other people to ask.
Yeah, that's what I've seen too. Once people hit it to a certain level, they're glad to help out people. They want to help other people succeed too. It's like, I don't even know what it is. It's just once people get to that level, it's like they want to help other people do the same thing and save some of the mistakes.
It's almost, and I'm a Christian, and there's part of me, this isn't biblical, but there's part of me that says it's very sinful to sit on that information and not share it. Like God gave me all of that experience and all that information and that wealth of information. And I don't coach many people. I just don't, it's just not my thing. There's a couple I do. I mean, honestly, instead of paying me $5,000 an hour, you can buy this book for, $25 and learn everything you would sitting across the desk from me. But I do on almost every other Friday, sometimes more often, sit down or get on the phone with somebody in their 20s, not in their 40s or 50s. Not that I'm discriminating, but I really want to feed that generation.
Yeah. And that can make such a huge difference. One situation could change someone's life. Just that one gem. And the way I approach it or the way I share it is going to be a little unconventional. Not the way that they sat and listened to a teacher in school teach it to them. Because I want, ultimately in the end, the last section of my new book, Aspire, there's 5 sections, there's 25 chapters. The last section, the 5th section, is titled From Rich to Enriched. Ultimately, that's what I hope happens to everybody listening to this and everybody that gets to this 5th section of my book, because becoming rich is wonderful, but money will provide you with only 2 things, and these 2 things in abundance: relief and comfort. In abundance, relief from all the pressures and all the comfort you want to surround yourself with. But there's something missing from that, right? I didn't say happiness or joy. And I've experienced the depths of despair and depression associated with being a consumerist and a materialist. And it wasn't until the late 90s that I decided I needed to find what my spiritual highest calling was, in addition to what we're going to spend most of our time talking about with your folks today, is my professional highest calling. I want to move you, ultimately have the mindset condition to move from rich to enriched. Now, do you think, because you said whenever you were 21, you cut out like drinking, all that kind of stuff. Do you think people can be successful doing that? Or do you think it's important to keep everything clean and keep your brain like sharp?
I'm not going to pass judgment on anybody who drinks or does drugs or shoots heroin, for that matter. I'm just going to tell you that the people that I looked up to, the people I was learning from on that tennis court, and then as I had a bigger sphere, I mean, I sat in Donald Trump's office in New York City, asked him for an endorsement on my very first book that came out 20 years ago, Make It Big, which is a great book. If those of you just getting started, Make It Big, right? Just go to Amazon. You'll see all my books. And he was another one that never drank or smoked or did drugs ever in his life, not once. So, I mean, these are things that I saw over and over again. And I said, well, if this is a classroom I'm in, and my teachers are saying, resist to live an extraordinary life, Frank, you have to resist an ordinary approach. And ordinary, especially at 21, was everybody, my young friends were drinking and stuff. So I have found that I can be like, I have this saying that kind of pisses off the alcoholics, but I'm not sober. I just don't drink or do drugs.
Okay.
You can become intoxicated on a lot of other things besides alcohol and drugs. And that's what I fill my life with. I'm on a high from the creativity and the ingenuity that I bring to my books that I write. I've written 7 in 6 different genres, or the houses I build. So if I was coaching you one-on-one, I would get into, if you were drinking or doing drugs, I would dig deep to find the reason why. I'm not going to judge, but let's find out the reason why. And once you understand a vice, once you understand what a vice is doing for you, providing for you, and in that awareness of what that vice is, it drops from your hands. There's no more fighting, because we empower the demons we fight. We empower the vices that we fight. The fighting is going to give it energy. I choose to understand it. I have my demons, don't get me wrong, but I understand what they are. And once I completely understand what they're doing for me, I have this awareness of what that demon, be it drugs, alcohol, women, what have you, whatever it's doing for gambling, whatever it's doing for me, I understand it. And it's like sand through my fingers. I get it and it drops. I'm not fighting it anymore.
Yeah.
That's a whole philosophical discussion for another day.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there too. Cause I noticed that I used to drink a lot and get in a lot of trouble. Same thing. And I noticed a lot of the successful people, most of them, some of them go out and drink and stuff. I just noticed it was a characteristic. A lot of them don't.
Listen, if you do drink and do drugs, legal or otherwise, I don't like the crutch a lot of people use. Well, my doctor prescribed me heroin. My doctor prescribed me Adderall or whatever. Those who have legacy type success, I'm talking about generational success, do not do those things. You might have a 10-year run where you're doing great and drinking and being able to burn it at both ends, but eventually one will win out over the other. Although one being that pursuit of a clean life that will allow you to extend that success. Eventually, if you're hitting that bottle or that vein, whatever, that's going to win out in the end. You'll get a flash in the pan variety type of success, but not a generational type of success.
Yeah, great answer there. So Frank, what made you go from doing the $100,000 houses to like, what switched in your brain? It's like, oh, I'm doing $100,000 houses. You know what? I want to go out on the beach and make $14 million houses now. Like, so the mindset changed there.
Okay, that is very important. So here's the macro statement, and it's section 2 of my new book, Aspire. There's section 2, and again, there's 5 chapters that deal with what I'm going to talk about right now. Risk equals fear equals big change or big challenge. The macro statement is, I'm afraid every day of my life. I realize that fear is associated with the thought of taking a risk, the thought of moving up the price point, the thought of asking the girl out on the date, the thought of going back to church, the thought of correcting my diet. It's the thought that creates the fear. It's not the actual taking of the risk. I'm going to freeze that one more time. It's the thought of taking a risk that causes us to experience fear. When we take the risk, Bryan, the fear goes away. I'm going to give you a real simple example, a roller coaster. You sit down on that roller coaster and that bar clanks across your chest. What's happening to your heart? It's pounding. Your heart rate is rising. Then you start going up that first hill where it's being pulled by that chain and you hear that clickety-clack sound. You're ready to pass out because no blood's getting to your head. You're so nervous. Nothing's happened to you yet. You're still sitting safe and sound in the car with the security belt over your waist. It's the thought of what is about to happen that's causing your blood pressure to rise and your heart rate. What happens when you go over the top of that first hill? Throw our hands in the air. We're yelling. We're joyous. It's excitement. And most of us, if the line isn't too long, get off the ride and do it all over again. That's exactly how business is. It's exactly what happens. The problem is with the difference between the roller coaster and your real estate business is when you're in the roller coaster and you're going up that hill, you can't get off. You have to go. When you're in business and all that fear hits, because I'm going to go from flipping $100,000 houses to 2.2 million, which was our jump. We didn't jump to 14, we went from 100,000 to 2.2. You better believe I was terrified. And I still am when I contemplate a new genre or new project. But it's the thought associated with it. Once I take the risk, Bryan, once you take the risk, it will go away. 5 years, full time, hundreds of little houses we did, not one worth more than 100 grand. I got good at the craft of real estate. Our margins went from 7 grand a house to 25 grand a house. 25 grand a house on a $100,000 investment is a fantastic return. I said to my wife in 1992, honey, we're really good at this. All we need to do is add 1 0. 1 0. The only difference between buying a house for 75 grand and flipping it for 100 and having to do nothing but, change the mailbox or something. The only difference between 75 grand and 750 is which I paid for that first house is 1 freaking 0. And I pitched it to her. I said, honey, we had to listen. Another one of my sayings is to live an extraordinary life, you have to resist an ordinary approach. I already said that. Sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. Sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. And we did. We sold we were living the lifestyle of the rich and famous in 1992 before I even turned 30. And we sold our house, our cars, our clothes at a garage sale and moved into an efficiency that was so small I could flip the eggs from the shower. I could literally reach out of the shower, flip the eggs on the stove. We put it all in that oceanfront house. And from there, we just haven't looked back. So it was really recognize, and I can fast track this for you in that second section of my book, Aspire. I don't know if you have links or something. Put up a link to theaspirebook.com. For those of you who want to check it out, theaspirebook.com, or just go to Amazon. Once you understand that the fear is associated with simply the thought of taking some kind of risk in your life, physical, financial, relational, spiritual risk, and once you take the risk, you condition that risk tolerance like a muscle. You get stronger. You can withstand greater risk pressure over time. You will be accustomed to taking more and more risk. Bryan, the primary difference between me and most of my competition or other real estate people at my level to get to my level is that one thing. There are smarter guys out there. There's guys that have more access to financing and partners and networks. I'm not afraid. I don't let fear stop me. I am afraid, but I don't let it stop me. And I never really have. That's the primary differentiator. Matter of fact, that's the title of one chapter, the differentiator under the risk category in my life.
Yeah, that's huge too. I've actually never thought about that. The fear, taking risk is in the thinking part. Cause I guess you're right. Once you start doing it, it kind of goes away because now you're involved you're doing it.
You're immersed. Just like you're on the roller coaster, right? You're loving the ride. That's the same thing with business. Like get out there, enjoy the freaking ride that's in front. Like a podcast like yours, it teaches people, what is it? Eat, think, and sleep, or
eat, sleep, invest.
Eat, sleep, and invest. I mean, it's that simple. We got to eat, we got to sleep, and then we got to wake up. And what are you going to listen, when you're done and you're on your rocking chair on your front porch at 80, if you get to live to that, or 90, whatever, you're going to have regrets in life. Every one of you are going to have regrets. I'd rather regret what I did, not what I didn't do. I will have very few of those. Not who regrets. I remember when I did the $50 million house, like I said to myself, listen, man, I'd rather go down in flames, eat out of a dumpster if this doesn't work, than sitting on the sidelines when I'm 80 saying, I wish I would have taken that risk. I'm just not going to live that way.
Yeah. And anyone listening too, just go on to Google Frank McKinney and houses. Like check out some of these houses. They're sick. Like they are sweet houses. It's truly an art. It's like you weren't just remodeling a house. It's like you were going in there and making art.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I live for it.
Yeah.
And there's a chapter in Aspire that talks about how to take an artist approach to your craft as a real estate investor. I mean, I say to your craft in anybody, because not just real estate people are buying that book, but please, consider yourself an artist at your craft. When I say that, I mean, I don't have time to get into the whole chapter, but Would an artist go into like Van Gogh or Renoir, Monet or Michelangelo? Would they go into a paint store or art supply store? Would they buy the cheapest paint? Would they buy the cheapest brush or the cheapest palette? No, they're going to do it right. And then they're going to sit back and say, this is my canvas. I'm going to make it the best representation of two things: my imagination, creativity, and myself, my soul. That's how I say you approach real estate. Too many people make the mistake of simply focusing on the freaking bottom line. And here's what happens when you do that. Or here's a way to avoid that. Build your reputation first, and the bottom line will follow. Build that sacrifice bottom line for your reputation. There's so few people that follow that. In the early days, my margins were compressed. Even today, could I make more money on my houses? I know I could by not putting in what I put in. But my reputation now speaks for itself. When I'm done with a house, the average holding time, according to MLS, for a house more than 5 million, because they don't go 5 to 10, they go to 100 to 200,000, 300 to 400,000, they go 5 million plus. The average holding time now, even in this hot market, is about 7 months. My average day on market for 30 freaking years at the high end level is 53 and a half. 53 and a half days. Some have been, I remember one took a year. Many of them sold in 2 days or pre-sold. So, but that's because I chose to build my reputation before I chose to build my bottom line. And I still do that. I still focus on sacrificing a little bottom line for my reputation.
Yeah, one thing I saw too. So when you were selling these houses, did you just list them up? I saw there was some showmanship.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like on some of those.
So, well, I mean, here, again, the first section, let me just get through these sections of my book, because one of this that you're talking about is important. The first section, which I'd like to come back and spend a minute on, is explaining the difference between motivation, inspiration, and aspiration, and why aspiration can alter the DNA and motivation will not last. The second section talks about what we just did about fear. The third section is going to answer your question, the art of personal branding. So when we unveil a house, it is very theatrical. I've jumped a motorcycle over a house. I rappelled out of a helicopter on the top of one house. To reveal the Aspire book, I rode up onto the beach on a jet ski that was on fire. So the method to the madness says this. My mother says, Frank, why don't you just put out, Mickey, she calls me Mickey, why don't you just put out an open house sign and a for sale sign and be done? When we unveil a piece of property, and by the way, Bryan, this was happening with $100,000 houses. I wasn't jumping over them or rappelling from a helicopter, but I had helium balloons tied to the chimney. I had Mylar, which is that stuff you see on a used car lot that kind of flickers in the light. I had that stapled to the fascia, and I had a pink gorilla. Oftentimes, I was in the pink gorilla suit pointing to the house. So it's the showmanship or the theater is what gets people to the front door. But I'm the opening act. The helicopter rappel, the motorcycle jump. I played Blackbeard in this battle between good and evil pirates where I ziplined from one house roof to the guest house. That's the show. The idea is then to step back, and the true show starts when they walk through the front door. I don't come with the house. The show might belong on a back lot in Vegas or Broadway. Some realtors have said this guy's kind of corny, but oh my God, you got to see this house. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, just use that to get people there.
Absolutely. And in my book, First This, which is my real estate book, Frank McKinney's Bubble-Proof Real Estate Strategies, I explain it's the longest section in my real estate book. First This is the marketing section. Why? Because you can overpay for the opportunity. You can overpay when you buy your flip. You can over-improve it, but you can make up for a lot of mistakes through your marketing. And that's why that section is like 50 pages long. And I go through the 127 initiatives that I touch on a regular basis when it comes to marketing and branding the house. Because remember, in personal branding, Bryan, well, my definition of personal branding is it's the art of amplifying your essence to the point where your customers, either current or future, become subliminally intoxicated with you first, then your product or service. So you're the one who draws the attention to the property. You're the one you have such a burning passion for what you do. You believe you're one of the best in the world at it, and you're not afraid to tell the world those two things. You're not Coke, you're not Pepsi, you're not Apple. You don't have a product name that speaks for itself. You're the megaphone for your brand. And that endears your customers to want to do business with you first, and then your product or service second. Don't forget that.
Yeah, that's important. You got a lot of stuff in that book. Hey, now tell them again too, if they want to get this book. You saying Amazon, it's on there, right? Or should they go to the website?
No, Amazon's fine. I mean, Amazon, you can look at all 7 of them. If you want the real estate book, you get that there. Here's the cool thing about all my books, Bryan. So Aspire is, you can go, what I would suggest you do before you even go to Amazon is go to, and write this down, theaspirebook.com. What you find there is a sample chapter, free. I recorded the Audible version of Aspire. I narrated it. I'm the narrator. There's a free Audible chapter, so you can kind of get a flavor for what you're going to experience. There's a ton of reviews of the book. There's the videos of the grand, the launching of the book. There's a ton of stuff there. Even Tony Robbins endorsed my book. All that's there. And then you decide. You can buy it from us on theaspirebook.com, or you can buy it from Amazon. I think it's almost the same price, maybe a little bit more from us because we got to mail it. Here's the cool thing, though, and we haven't even talked about this, but we'll save it for the end. We run it. I started and still run a charity that builds self-sustaining villages in Haiti. We've built 20 villages. Back that up. We are building our 30th village in our 20 years in Haiti. Every single book that I sell funds the villages. One book, one Aspire book, provides 200 meals in one of our orphanages. 200 meals. That's about 12 cents a meal, 2-part protein, 1-part carbohydrate. I make no money from the sale of my books. That's how we fund our charity.
That's crazy. So 12 cents a meal. Then you said that's Haiti, right?
It's Haiti. Yep.
So, and I know a little bit about this. So you're down there building homes for people to live in. Right. Like, just what made you want to go down there and do all that kind of stuff?
That's the most important question you'll ask me, because this does talk right about the last section of my book, From Rich to Enriched. Everybody listening to your podcast, Bryan, has a professional highest calling, and you're going to focus on that your entire life. I say, because my mentor taught me this 20 years ago when I was depressed and ready to almost pull the trigger on the gun. Everyone listening has a spiritual highest calling. And there's a passage in the Bible. I'm going to paraphrase it for you. I'm not going to pound on the pulpit or shove this down your throat. And if I didn't say it was from the Bible, it's a great life mantra. So don't let that scare you. If you love the Bible, then it's a Bible passage. If you don't, it's a life mantra. To whom much is entrusted, much is required. To whom much is given, much is expected. Bryan, I had been given a lot from that juvenile delinquent, 4 high school, 1.8 GPA start. I felt it was incumbent upon me to be a responsible steward for the blessings God had given me. And in a nutshell, from a 1.8 GPA guy, I provide housing to the world's most wealthy who probably don't even need it. Well, I know they don't need another house because they have a number of them all over the world. Shouldn't I be providing a self-sustaining existence to the most desperately poor and homeless that starts with shelter? So 20 years ago, we went to Haiti and built our first self-sustaining villages. When I say self-sustaining, it's key you focus in on this. As I said earlier, I'm not a fan of entitlements or welfare programs. All 30 now of our villages are self-sustaining, and they combine the following elements: 50 houses, a community center that has a school, church, a clinic in it, renewable food, clean drinking water, and some form of free enterprise sprinkled over the top that allows them to be self-sustaining. Bryan, we are 30 for 30. When we're done, those villages don't come back to us for more money. We tell them we're not coming back to help you, so you better be self-sustaining. And when you take all those elements in Haiti, I can build one concrete house for a family of 8 that was living in a mud shack covered with palm fronds for a roof, dirt floors, rodents the size of cats running around the floor doing stuff to the kids at night that I won't even repeat. And I can build a brand new concrete house to replace that for $4,800 for a family of 8. These houses are tiny, like not much bigger than my treehouse, but they are concrete foundation, concrete walls, a metal roof. kitchen. My newest village has a microflush toilet in it and a solar system and a little cistern to keep the fresh water in there for $4,800. So in business, we have an ROI. We all know what that is, return on investment. We coined the phrase ROD, return on donation. How far can I stretch my donor's dollar? Well, you heard for one book, it's 200 meals. For $4,800, it's a whole house for a family of 8. That's what I hope when you get to the point, well, I hope today's the point, that you realize you have 3 things you can share: time, talent, and treasure. Before I had any treasure and before I had any talent, I was sharing my time feeding meals at a homeless shelter. I got a little talent and I started going out and helping people fix up their houses in the bad part of town. Then I had the treasure, and we're using that 30 villages later to provide a self-sustaining existence. Bryan, it allowed me to move from rich to enrich. It allowed me to be a responsible steward for the blessings God given me, and to live up to that passage, to whom much is entrusted, much is expected. If you watch these podcasts of Bryan's and all you ever want to get out of it is making more money, well, what are you going to do with all that money? And here's the answer, because I hear it all the time. Well, Frank, listen, I just want to make more money so I can buy more stuff. I need a bigger house, or I want to get a new car. I don't like my job. Okay, fair enough. What are you going to do with all the money you've made? Once you get the new car, really, why are you needing those things? Why do you want those things? Well, Frank, my car is a piece of crap and my house is too small. I really just need it. Okay. Why is it that you really need a bigger house? Okay, Frank, shut up. I just want to be happy. Oh, you want to be happy? Okay, so all these things you're pursuing, they're going to bring you happiness, huh? What did I say earlier? They'll bring you all the relief and comfort in your life. That will wear off like a bad sunburn. It's those things that matter. You want joy is what you really want. And when you find your spiritual highest calling, like I have over in Haiti over the last 20 years, I get to skip over happiness and land on joy. I have purpose. I could have retired 20 years ago. I've got a purpose for waking up in the morning and building these beautiful houses. And I think about those villages and those poor children over there. And it's extended my life, Bryan. I mean, it's extended my career, of course. That's what I hope for.
And that is awesome too. Like even what you're talking about with, you can make money. Once you get there, it's like, okay, I thought that was going to do something different. You need that fulfillment. And like say even build self-sustaining is even more awesome, because you're doing something, changing people's lives. It's like the pay it forward kind of thing. Like you planted a seed there, and then the universe is going to take it wherever it's going to go. But that positive energy out there, the change you made in their life could impact who knows what. And you just had to do one thing.
And here's we're going to go all the way back to the 2nd chapter in Aspire. There's only one chapter out of those 25 chapters that is posed in the form of a question. What legacy do you aspire to leave behind? What legacy do you aspire to leave behind? It's a deep question. You almost have to face your own mortality. And I kind of help you how to do that in that chapter. Bryan, my legacy, I used to think it would be these theatrical grand unveilings and all these stunts that I would do and the beautiful houses we would build. It's not. It will not be that, because those will be forgotten, except for YouTube, or the houses will be torn down. Not because I built them bad, but just because the land appreciates and the physical structure depreciates, and eventually it gets torn down. My legacy will be the 13,000 children that we've provided a self-sustaining existence for. Because why? Because that's generational. I'm dead and gone. Those children's children now are doing better because of what we started 20 years ago. And their children's children, that's the kind of stuff you want to look for. Like everybody wants to leave a legacy, because why? That's a small snippet of immortality. You leave a legacy, you're immortal. Well, who doesn't want to live forever? I know I do, even though I can't. But what I've done for those children and those families will live for generations.
Yeah, and I remember even too, whenever we were talking before, you were saying, okay, what do we need? And you're like, we don't really need people to donate their time and come down with us, because you're taking away a job from somebody,
right,
in there. So they're teaching them those skills and everything too while you're doing it. And
I'm glad you brought that up, because every one of our villages there, we don't take volunteers. We employ all Haitians and Haitian contractors and subcontractors because in some of these villages, Bryan, the unemployment rate can push 80%. We flip out when it got to like 5% here in the United States, 80%. And we don't export any materials. We buy everything from them, all the concrete and the steel and the wood and all that to make the houses. We buy all that from them. So we're supporting that fragile local economy.
So how can people help? How can people help?
200 meals. Go to my website. Listen, when you go to my website, which you can get there by just going to the aspirebook.com and kind of playing around, you'll find it because that's all in the same place. It's been called Disney on a Desktop by PC Magazine because you can go and visit all 29 of my prior villages, like virtually. You can take tours through the houses I've built. You can read sample chapters of all the books I've ever written, see where I'm speaking. So if you go to my website, you'll see under the Caring House drop down, I have 78 donation options that range from a $4.50 chicken all the way to a whole village, which is 300 grand, and anywhere in between. So if you say, or somebody listening says, that's great for him, he's rich, let him build the villages, give up a latte for a day and donate $4.50 for a freaking chicken. You can do that. You can do better for yourself and our villages by buying one of these for $29 or whatever they're on there for. So I don't want your sympathy, empathy. Prayers are great. Listen, this is a business. My Caring House project is a business. It's not about hugging orphans or going over there and feeling better about myself or worse. I actually don't feel anything. I just go, I have a job to do. The difference between my Caring House business, my real estate business, there's still a profit motive for both, right? I have a financial motive, money motive in the real estate business. My profit over there is represented or measured by human capital, human lives. How many human lives am I impacting? That's my return on donation. That's my return on investment. It's not money. It's human freaking life. What's more important than that?
Yeah, I like how you put it too, an ROD, return on donation. Because people never think about it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this or this, and it's just like whatever. There's a return there. You get a fulfillment.
Always return. And when people are really leery about nonprofits and charities, and I don't even call ourselves a charity. One thing I coined the phrase. What I besides a real estate artist, I'm a philanthrocapitalist. Philanthrocapitalist, which is the combination of two words, philanthropy and capitalism. Taking the best of philanthropy, which is, heart-centered, it's love, and getting rid of the worst, which is charity. Charity exacerbates poverty, doesn't solve it. So we've gotten rid of the charitable element to keep the heart there. Then we go to capitalism. You take the best, which is, the free enterprise element, which is the profit, the money we make. That's a great thing. It's been around since the Roman era. And you get rid of the bad part about capitalism, which is greed. So we've gotten rid of charity, got rid of greed. You marry the two good things that are left, which is the heart and the profit needed to drive the heart. And man, that's why people support us.
Yeah, that's awesome. So everybody listening, you can help yourself and help other people with one stone. Go buy the book, check it out, and then buy one for a friend too. Help them out.
Help them out. Hey, listen, if you do buy them from us, Bryan, Amazon's fine. It doesn't matter to me. But if you buy it from us, I sign them all. I sign every single book that's bought from us to you. Whoever buys it from us, it comes in on the the online form who you are, and I sign them to you, and we mail them to you.
Awesome. Hey, I'm glad you brought that up too, because people are going to buy from Amazon or you. Might as well just buy from you too. Then they get an autograph book.
It might be $10 more per book because of the shipping and all, but come on. Either way, I don't care. Do either way you want.
I like it. Yeah. So, hey, Frank, did we miss anything? I know there's so much we can talk about, but is there anything else we needed to cover here?
You got 4 of the 5 sections. Oh, let's start with the difference real quick between motivation, inspiration, aspiration. Just really, sometimes if I'm given like 5 minutes, that's all I'll give because it's so profound and it's so important. So if I did a poor job today, I motivated you.
Right.
Because motivation washes off and goes down the drain with the soap at night. Think about it. You read an inspirational quote on social media. You listen to an inspirational podcast, other than yours, of course. And by the time you get in the shower, it has done nothing for you. Motivation washes off and goes down the drain with the soap at night or in the morning, whenever you shower. And the motivation industry is aware of that. That's why there's a multi-billion-dollar industry built around something we can't keep, which is motivation. So don't beat yourself up over the fact that you can't stay motivated to stay on a budget, stay on a diet, go to church, stay in a relationship. It's just not wired into our DNA. Okay, you should feel better now. What about inspiration, Frank? You watch an inspirational movie. You read a really inspirational book. That inspiration wears off like the effects of a bad sunburn. In about a week or two, you're pretty much in the same place you were. Maybe a flashback or two, but it hasn't changed you. Aspiration. Motivation and inspiration ignite aspiration. And aspiration is the following: an otherworldly, burning passion to pursue your purpose. An otherworldly, burning passion to pursue your purpose on earth. I aspire to fill in the blank. You can't answer that with the word motivate or inspire. Frank McKinney has aspired to 5 things in his life. I aspired to be a best-selling author when I had a 1.8 GPA. And now I am in 6 genres and 7 books. I aspired to be a real estate artist. I didn't want to be a developer or a builder or a flipper. I wanted to be artistic in what I did. And it was crazy at first until the Wall Street Journal gave me the nickname the real estate artist, and I ran with it from that time. I aspired to run the toughest foot race in the world according to National Geographic. We don't have time to get into it, but it's 135 miles on foot across the Death Valley Desert on pavement that's 200 degrees. During the summer, when it's 125 degrees, I've ran the toughest foot race in the world. I finished it 7 times. I failed 5, but I finished it 7. Put in perspective, there's over 5,000 people that have summited Mount Everest. There's only 980 or so people that finished this race. I aspired to finish that race. I aspired to run a charity in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and somehow figured out a way to do it. And finally, because I didn't really have this growing up, I aspired to have a family. And I've been married 31 years. I have a 23-year-old daughter, and that aspiration has also manifested itself. And so just realize when you read that first section of Aspire, feel okay about the fact you can't stay motivated or inspired. I'm going to help you find what is it that you aspire to do this time next year that you're not doing now. What legacy do you aspire to leave behind? Like, that's the most important question to answer. And only through aspiration, subtitle, how to create your own reality and alter your DNA. I'm kind of tired, or not tired, I'm concerned about people allowing other outside influences to create reality for them, meaning what I call our screens: the small screen, the phone, the medium-sized screen, which is this, and the TV screen. I work in a treehouse because I want to create my own reality. And finally, and alter your DNA. So there is science to that. I won't bore you with it, but it does happen. I can just tell you that I killed the person I was born to become the person I wanted to be. That goes counter to what most people, become what you were born to be. Well, what if what you're born to be you don't like? Like, my dad was a banker. My grandfather was a banker. I didn't want to be a banker. I was a juvenile delinquent, would have been criminal after that. I want to be a criminal. I killed the old Mickey McKinney that left Indiana and came here and became what I wanted to be. And that first section really will set you up for the risk section and the personal branding section and then the love life section and then the spiritual highest calling section. That's I think we end on that, Bryan, because that message of aspiration over motivation and inspiration will help a ton of people.
Dude, that's awesome too, especially the motivation. You're right. You get motivated tomorrow, it's gone.
And we beat ourselves up over the fact, like, you think there's something wrong with you. Because we listen, a lot of motivation comes from comparison. It doesn't come just internally or from being in the woods. We compare ourselves to what we see on social media or what we've read. That's a dangerous form of motivation, comparison. So So you're motivated after today, and then tomorrow it wears off. A, I failed you. B, that's completely normal because you'll soon compare yourself to somebody else. And then it becomes this vicious cycle, Bryan, of people beating themselves up over the fact that, man, I went on the diet and I quit, and I started going to church and I quit, and I thought I was going to get into real estate, but I was a flipper, then I became a wholesaler, and then now I want to do storage units and Airbnb. Like, I can't stick with anything. Stop the madness. Answer the simple questions that I posed in that first section. What legacy do you aspire to leave behind? What do you aspire to be doing this time next year that you're not doing now? I mean, that internal dialogue that we have right now, everybody has internal dialogue. A lot of it's negative. I have it myself. My promise to myself is by this time next blank, my next birthday, by this time next year, I will not be having the same internal dialogue. I'll be having a new one, but not the same, because if you do, you haven't changed one bit. Inventory that internal dialogue and land back on answering that question and understanding that it's truly aspiration that can alter your DNA and allow you to create the reality that you love.
That's good stuff. So if anyone's motivated right now, take that motivation, buy a book, and you can learn how to make it last.
Good. You are right. Go right to that first section and latch on to aspiration. Because the last message about aspiration is it's like a Fabergé egg. It is, if for those of you who don't know what that is, it's sacred. Like, I aspire to finish the toughest foot race in the world. Okay. Am I motivated to do that every day? No. Am I inspired to get up at 3 a.m. and run 25 miles before work? No. But I don't lose the aspiration. So I'm not beating myself over the fact that I'm not motivated to do this. No, but I still want to finish that race. And to do that, I've got to train. I still want to be a real estate artist and build the next project. Am I motivated to go to the job site and kick everybody in the ass today? No. That's why once you identify the aspirations, physical, financial, relational, spiritual, and you put them in that Fabergé box and you put them on that sacred shelf, you'll work toward them every day, even when you're not motivated or inspired to. That's so key.
That's awesome. And so true. So anyone who's interested, tell them again where they can go.
Easiest place to start is theaspirebook.com. When you pull up theaspirebook.com, all the other drop downs about Carrying House and the oceanfront artistry and all that will be up above you. But start there. Take a look at the free chapter. Listen to the free Audible, chapter or download that I narrated, and see if it's not like a Disney on a desktop. Because there's a lot to do there that costs you absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and hey guys, too, all the links will be in the footnotes, in the notes, so they'll all be there. Just go click them and check it out, because there's a ton there. There's a lot of information. Hey, well,
let me just finish by saying, you guys listening to Bryan's podcast, I've been on Oprah twice. I've been interviewed by everybody under the sun. Your interview format and the quality that we check out everybody who invites us on their program just to make sure that you're good. I've watched some of your other programs, some of your other podcasts. Eat, sleep, and invest. You guys listening to this are super fortunate to have a leader like this, to get people like me and other great people that you've hosted on this program. So, don't take for granted the information that he's given you. Bryan, you're really a great host and you deliver great content.
Hey, Frank. Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for saying that.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, hey, you know what? I wanted to tell you, thanks for coming on. This was awesome. And keep doing what you're doing. You guys are out there crushing it. And anyone listening, go buy the book. You can help yourself, help some other people out, and then go out there and make something happen in the world.
Take care, everybody. Have an aspirational week.